Welcome to the first episode of Masterclass on Motion Design using Adobe After Effects. In this episode, I will cover the very basics. So if you're a noob in motion design, you have come to the right place. Stay tuned. Awesome people, welcome to my channel. This is Sapta, and if you're here for the first time, this is the place where I help designers build and scale their career with tips, suggestions, and tutorials. If you're into it, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. When you think of motion design, there are a few terms which you always hear: interaction, micro-interaction, prototype, delight, and whatnot. All these are very closely related to product design. Interaction, as the word suggests, it's about interacting with something or someone. Right now, I'm interacting with you via this screen. You can see and hear me. Similarly, in case of digital products, you interact with an interface, the UI. When you scroll, tap, swipe, or do anything else, you're essentially interacting with the interface. Anything that involves designing the things which come right before, right after, or during those interactions is called interaction design. If I were to compare, interaction is like a handshake. When you meet someone new, you always shake hands, don't you? And along with the handshake, you also smile a bit. Now that smile is not a part of the handshake, but you still do it because it's a nice gesture and it makes your handshake really warm and more welcoming. In this case, the smile is like micro-interaction. We will cover many such topics as we progress, but for now, let us address the elephant in the room, which is the tool After Effects. This is After Effects. It's a professional grade tool for creating special effects for videos. It's extremely capable and powerful. This entire video, along with all the interactions and the intro animations and everything else that you see, is created and edited right inside After Effects here. But the good news is, you just need to know 5% of After Effects. Yes, you heard me right. By knowing only 5% of After Effects, you will be able to do 95% of the things that matter to you as a UI animator. And today in this video, I'm going to teach you that 5%. The panel where you see my video right now is a composition. This is like a canvas or an artboard where you do all the design. If you're importing an image or drawing a shape or doing anything else, you do it here. Just like in other tools like Photoshop and Illustrator. The panel right below is the timeline. This is the most important timeline because this is what differentiates it from a static tool. This is what makes it a tool used for creating animations. And this panel to your left is the project panel. Think of it like a file browser inside After Effects. All the assets that you use in your animation, be it an image, a video, or an audio, is all listed here. And as and when you keep working, you can keep dragging them to your work and keep going on. Now that you know the basics of the interface, let's get working. This is the blank interface of After Effects. You see, this is called Untitled Project because every After Effects file is essentially a project. And here you have an option to create a new composition. A composition is nothing but an artboard or a canvas where you can design or work or do anything, just like any other design tool. And there can be multiple compositions inside one project, and there can be composition inside another composition as well, depending on what you are creating. So to start with, let's go ahead and create a composition. I click on this and a simple dialog box opens up which asks for dimensions. 1920 and 1080 is pre-selected for me because that was the last time I had used. So I will leave that. Frame rate is 25, works for me. For UI animation, I usually use 60, but for this demonstration, I think 25 is good enough. Duration is 6 seconds. The start time code, don't bother what that is, leave it to 0. And resolution also doesn't quite matter because this is just about how this file will render when you're using it inside After Effects. When you're editing it, it has got nothing to do with the final quality. So even if you select quarter here, you can still render it in full quality. So I will keep it quarter because it's so that it's not very intensive on my system. Background color again doesn't matter because we will, if we want some background color, we'll put some solids or we'll put some rectangles and anyways cover it up. And this is the name of the composition. Let me also give it a name. Let's call it AE Basics. SICS. Yes. I'll go ahead and click OK. And the moment I do this, you will see the blank canvas in front of me. There is AE Basics, a composition which is created, the one which you've just created. It appears on the project panel. And since there is just one composition here, that automatically gets opened in the timeline as well. So this is the timeline. Now let's go ahead and create something on the artboard. So I'll create a simple shape, maybe this rectangle. I click on the rectangle tool and I just click and draw something just like you do in any other design tool. You can pull it and create something unconstrained, or if you press and hold shift, it will be a constrained square. So I'll just keep something like this. Yep, that is good enough. Now you will see when this is created, a corresponding layer is also created here in the timeline. So there's always a relation between what you're doing here and what appears here. Now this has, further drop downs and many other things inside, but don't worry about them. We'll come back to these in a while. I'll go and click the selection tool again. By default, it has the shape layer 1. It takes shape layer 1 as the name. I'll just call it rectangle white, just for the sake of hygiene. So this is our rectangle, and whether I select it here or I click it here, it's one and same thing. However, there's one extra thing that you would see which you otherwise do not see in other tools maybe, which is this round thing out here. This is called an anchor point. I'll demonstrate what anchor point is in a bit, but before that, let's go ahead and see what this layer has inside, these drop downs. So when you select it and click on this drop down, you will see two further drop downs. One is contents, one is transform. So contents usually have the things which are related to the property or the shape that you have just drawn. In our case, it's a rectangle. So, you'll find another rectangle and you will see rectangle path or, the stroke or the fill color, transform, and many other things. So this is like within the shape. Now what we are bothered about right now is the transform thing. So when you just click on this drop down, you will see there are 5 different kinds of things. Anchor point, something that I've just spoken about. I'll tell you what that is. Position, scale, rotation, and opacity. These 5 are the things which can be animated from a transform point of view. The transformation as in when you're moving it or scaling it or rotating it, as you can see. Let's go ahead and rotate this and animate this while rotation. This is our timeline, and this blue thing that you see, this is the handle. You can drag and move it and keep it anywhere. This is like a cursor. This is like a keyboard cursor. When you're typing on a word processor, you will see the cursor and whatever you type appears there. This is similar to that. This is similar. So since we are starting the animation, I'll just go ahead and keep it in 0 seconds, which is this. And you would see this is the timeline, 1 second, 2 seconds. You can, of course, expand this as well. You can zoom in, and the shortcut is either you pinch on your trackpad or you can use the keyboard shortcuts of plus and minus to zoom in and zoom out. So I think for now, this is a good zoom point, I believe. Similarly, in this also, you can zoom in and zoom out by using the scroll. Using the scroll on your trackpad, you can zoom in and zoom out. Alternately, you can also use this drop down to set a particular zoom position if you want it that way. Maybe you just want to fit it so that it's fitted to the entire viewport that you have, the real estate that you have. And there can also be chances when you have zoomed it because you're working on something, and now without zooming out, you would want to pan to different sides of it. And the shortcut to do that is to press and hold space bar. While your space bar is on, you can drag and keep moving to the different corners or pan across the entire big artboard. You'll see when you press and hold space bar, the tool changes to this hand tool. So essentially, hand is the tool using which you can pan around. And your default tool is a selection tool, and that's what we will use most of the time when we are working on After Effects. So let me quickly go and set the zoom position to fit because I get to see everything. Let's go ahead and animate now. I will bring the handle to 0 seconds. I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to animate its rotation property. So I'll select it. I will click on rotation, this circular thing, which is nothing but a stopwatch. Now this stopwatch is like a toggle which turns on or turns off the animation property of this rectangle. So once I turn it on, say for rotation, I'll be able to animate rotation throughout this entire composition anytime. So this is a one-time thing that I do, right? And also you will see when I do this, when I click on the, when I click it again, it goes away. So when I click on this, you'll also see one small dot appearing here. This dot is nothing but a keyframe. I'll just move this so that you see what it is. It's like a small, square, a rotated square, something like a diamond shape. This keyframe is the thing which stores information about this. So since it's rotation, it stores rotation information, which is the angle. And this is how After Effects handles any kind of rotation properties or angle. It's a number x plus number degree, which means x here is the number of complete rotations and this one is incomplete rotation. As we all know, one complete rotation is 360 degrees. So if I put 1 here, which means it is 360 degrees and followed by any other change, 30 degrees or something. So to give you an example, if I write 1x and 30 degrees, it's equivalent to 360 plus 30, which is nothing but 390 degrees. I'll just make this 0 once again. Right, yeah, you would be seeing something happening there, but I will show that to you right away. So this is t equal to 0. So I will quickly move this handle, ahead, a couple of frames ahead, or maybe 1 second ahead. I'll bring it to 1 second ahead and I will add one more keyframe here. And to do that, I will click on this. When I click on this, you will see another square or dot appearing here. Now these are the two keyframes. Both of them store rotation information. And when there is a difference between the information of this and this, we will see an animation happening. Right now, there's no difference. Hence, when I hold this handle and I drag it here, you won't see any animation. And there's also a way to play it. If I can bring it here and just click on spacebar, which is the shortcut for playing, you see there's no animation because I haven't made any changes. So let's go ahead and make some changes. I bring to the second keyframe that we have added. The first one can remain 0 and 0. And the second one, I'll come here and I will change this value to something else. Anything, let's put 90 degrees for now. Yep. When I go ahead and press enter, you would see something has changed here. And now when I hold this handle, you would see it's animating. But it's not animating the way you want it. I'm sure you didn't expect it to animate this way. It's like weirdly moving. This is where anchor point comes into the picture. So remember I told you about anchor point. So when you select it, you would see this is where your anchor point is. So anchor point is a point about which any changes or any animation affects that particular body. Since the anchor point is outside here, it's rotating about this point. So if I want it to rotate about its center, I'll have to bring this anchor point to the center of the body. And to do that, we have this tool, which is pan behind tool. When I click on this, I click and drag and I can bring it to the center. If I press and hold shift, it'll bring the constraints into the picture and I can, I can drag them to a particular corner or something. So I'll just keep it here. Now this gets really annoying at times because every time you draw a shape, After Effects by default brings the anchor point to the center of the entire artboard instead of the center of the shape. Now there's a way to change it. I'll just quickly show you there. I will delete this rectangle for now. If you go to After Effects, Preferences, General, you will find this thing here, Center Anchor Point in New Shape Layers. It's by default checked off. So you go ahead and click this and click on OK. So now what happens when you do this is every time you create any shape, it'll appear like it's at the center of the document, but the moment you release your mouse, it'll snap back to the center of the shape. So I find myself using this more often because I like having it at the center because of the nature of the animations that I do, and it makes a lot of sense. So instead of, to skip one step, I prefer turning on in preference. So here we have our shape layer. I'll again name it to rectangle white. Now, if I go ahead and rotate it, if I click on transform, rotation, and I just take it a couple of frames ahead and I make it 90 degrees And now when I run it, you will see it's rotating about its center. So that's what anchor point is. Now let me show you how you can combine these multiple properties to create something which is very interesting. For example, right now it is rotating, and while it is rotating, I can also do a few other things. So maybe I can change the opacity of it. So I hold this handle, bring it back to 0, turn on the opacity stopwatch. That adds an opacity keyframe. Now this keyframe stores opacity, just like these keyframes were storing rotation information. So while it's in opacity, you would see the opacity is set to 100% here. I will move this handle somewhere here. I will add one more keyframe of opacity. Still, nothing is happening in opacity because both of them are 100. So I will go to the last one, or say to the first one, and I will change the opacity to 0. Now it's gone because at this point, at 0 second, the opacity is 0. Now when I bring the handle, you see what is happening? The opacity is increasing from 0 to 100, and the rotation angle is increasing from 0 degrees to 90 degrees. So we have combined two animations. Let's combine one more. Let's add a scale animation as well. So I will click on the stopwatch, which adds a keyframe, come to the endpoint, add one more keyframe, and I bring it all the way back here, and I will change the initial scale of it from 100% to 0%. Now you see what will happen? It is growing in size, the opacity is increasing, and it's rotating as well. If I just bring the handle here and if I just play it, you see all these three things are happening at the same time. And there are many other things that you can animate. In fact, any property in all these drop downs, which I told you to ignore before, wherever you see this stopwatch, is something that you can animate. Now that's how interesting it gets, right? Now let's see what else can we do about it. Let's go beyond transform this time. I go to contents, I expand this rectangle, I go to rectangle path, and here I will see I have options of size, position, and roundedness. I ignored this position. How is this position different from the other? Let's not get into that right away because that's something you don't need to know. Let us see this roundedness, which is nothing but the corner radius. So let me animate the corner radius or the roundedness of this rectangle as it moves from 0 second to 1 second. So for that, I will click on this stopwatch. It adds a keyframe, and then I bring it all the way here where I was ending it slightly beyond 1 second. I'll create one more keyframe here and set the roundness. I will just increase it. I'll just hold it and pull it using my mouse and make it something like this. Right now, when I go back, you would see it's a rectangle with 0 corner radius. It's growing in size, increasing opacity, and at the same time increasing the corner radius as well. So this is what happens when you animate multiple properties along the same time. And this is the technique which is used almost everywhere. Every animation that you see which looks complex, it's actually not complex, but it's a combination of multiple simple things, right? Now you might be wondering what happened to all the other keyframes that you had added. They are there, don't worry, just that they are collapsed under this. So what we need to do is, there is a keyboard shortcut. So if you just go ahead and open transform, you would see all of them are here. But we have a very short and nifty keyboard shortcut, which is U. When I press U, it will show only the keyframes that I have added, and it'll collapse everything else, right? And this is a toggle, like once it is in this state, if you press U once again, it'll collapse everything. Now in this state, when you press U, it will only show you the keyframes which matter to you. That is the ones which you have added. And to make it faster and slower is again very simple. After doing this, if you feel that, hey, this is actually a little slow, I want it slightly faster. So how do you make something fast in a timeline? By reducing the distance between them, or reducing the time between them, because this is a timeline. So distance kind of translates to time, right? So I will select all these final keyframes and using mouse drag them closer. So what happens is this transition changes in a shorter period of time versus what it was before. So when I click on this, it is slightly faster than before. If I bring it even closer, it's going to be really fast. Similarly, if I bring it all the way behind, it's going to be really slow. And I can also give multiple speeds to different. I may say that, okay, the opacity, I want it to be really fast. I want the scale to happen slightly slow. And I want the rotation to go on for a really long time, right? So if you see, if I do that, you see what is happening? At first, the opacity has become 100. Then it kept scaling all the way to the end. Sorry, the scale is the keyframe that I moved, right? So you get a point. So the distance, however far or near you keep this final and the initial keyframes, will determine how fast that particular transition will happen. Now when you do this, you will find everything is very linear because things are moving in a very linear way, and that's not how real life is. That's not how things happen in real life. Things start slow, then it picks up some speed, and then again slows down as it ends. To do that, there's this thing called easy ease. So we select all these keyframes. Yep, just by drawing a rectangle with your mouse, you can select all the keyframes, and when the color becomes blue, it indicates that they are selected. You right click on any of this keyframe, any one of them, and you will have this menu here. Let's go to Keyframe Assistant, click on Easy Ease. The keyboard shortcut for that is F9. So I will click on Easy Ease, and once we do that, you will see the shape of the keyframes have changed. They were diamond shaped or the square shape before, and now they look like hourglasses. This change of shape indicates that these are not linear keyframes, but there's some sort of an easing applied to them. Now let's go ahead and play. I'll bring the handle all the way to 0, and I'll click on spacebar to preview it. You see, it's a lot better. It's not linear anymore. It's starting slow, picking up pace somewhere in between, and then again ending slow. Right? Now when you see here, these are the default values that comes with Easy Ease. You can also tweak those values, but that's not something that I'm going to discuss in this video, maybe the next one. It's a fairly simple thing, but I just don't want to discuss this today because it'll be an information overload for you. Those are pretty much the basics which I've just told you. Now this was in a rectangular frame, something like a movie, but let me quickly show you how this might render in the case of a mobile UI. So for that, I'll create a new composition again. I click on Composition, New Composition, and this time I'll give it a form of a mobile UI, something which has a width of 1080 by a height of 2160. This time I'll use a frame rate of 60 because, like I said, it's always better for mobile UI or any kind of user interface. It's good to have higher frame rate around 60. And duration 6 seconds is good enough. So I'll go ahead and click OK. This is the new composition, Comp1, which has been created. I forgot to give it a name there, so I will just rename it and call it Mobile. Now this is my new composition. This is my older composition, in which we had practiced the basics. And this is the new one that I have just created. So all of them are inside the same project that we have been working on. It is just two different compositions, right? Now inside this mobile, I will create another card, using a rectangle maybe, right? And I'll make it square this time, a perfect square. So I click and hold Shift and I leave it. And since we had turned that on in preferences, you see the anchor point is right there at the center. Now I need to center this within this frame. So I can either manually do it or there's a better way of doing it. I will select this and go to this Align tool here and click on Align horizontally, just like you have in Illustrator or Photoshop. If you don't see this Align tab here, then you can find it under Window and Align. So this is all the panels that you can have in After Effects. You don't have to go through all of them. Whatever you need, whenever you need, you can just go and turn them on and they will start appearing. So I have aligned it. I am done. So I will name this shape layer 1 into card. And I'll quickly do the same thing that I have done to the previous one while practicing. 1, I'm going to animate the scale. And this time I'll use keyboard shortcut. Of course, I can click on transform and then go to scale. Or what I can do is I can simply select this thing and hit S on the keyboard. S is the shortcut for scale. So what S does is it just reveals scale and hides everything else. Everything else is present, but it just shows me what I want. And since I've tapped on S, scale is what it shows me. So I click on the stopwatch here move a couple of frames ahead, and then add another keyframe here. And for the initial one, I will change the scale to around 20%. Yeah, 20% is good. So you see, this is the animation that is happening. And while that is happening, I will also animate the corner radius. So it's inside rectangle. I don't know if this has a keyboard shortcut, not that I'm aware of. So I will just navigate towards this rectangle path and I will animate roundedness. Move the handle to the same place where I have the other keyframe ending, and I will add one more keyframe here. And in the final state, I will have a roundedness of around 24 maybe. Yeah, I think that's pretty round. Actually, I'll make it a little more. Just to exaggerate, I'll make it 32. And in the initial, when I bring the handle back here, I want this square to look like a circle. So for that, I'm going to make it really large, you know, so that it's like this. And now when I go ahead and play, you see what is happening? Yeah. Now, I will also animate the position of it. So let me zoom out a bit so that I see the whole frame. And I'll click on card, and I know the shortcut for position, which is P. So I will hit P on my keyboard and it reveals position. I click on the stopwatch, and now I do not know where I had put my last keyframes, you know, the ending keyframes for the remaining two things that I have animated, and I want all these three things to happen at the same time. So I will hit U, which reveals every other keyframe that I have added. You see, roundedness and scale is something that we have added. I will move the handle to the end, add another keyframe for position, and I will change the position of it for the initial. That is, I pull the handle to the initial place. One way is I can either tweak these values, or the other way is I can directly pull this, hold this using mouse and pull it. So I will do the latter. I will select this, zoom in a little bit, and I will pull this down. I'll keep it somewhere here. So you see this line appearing? This line kind of suggests that the position animation has worked. So now if I go back and I play, you see what is happening? But it's linear, so let's add easy ease to all of them. I right click on all of them. I'll just make this frame a little higher. I right click on any one of them. Click on Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. Now when I go ahead and play, it's good, but I think it's a little too slow. So what I'll do is I'll hold these keyframes at the end and pull them inside, somewhere here. Now let me just make it a little big for you. And you see, actually it can be even faster. So I'll hold it and bring it even closer. Somewhere here. You see what's happening? Have you seen this kind of thing in mobile UI? Maybe this is a floating action button. When you tap on it, it expands and it becomes a card, right? So this is an example of how it can be implemented in mobile UI as well. I hope you enjoyed the video. This was meant to build your basics. Keep viewing it again and again if you want to revise. And as you view, keep working as well. View, pause, work. View, pause, work. This is going to help you. This was a very simple animation where you just animated some boxes. But now you're ready to do some real work and animate a real user interface in After Effects. Click this video up over here to know how to create a real user interface and animate it in After Effects. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. If you get any doubts regarding this tutorial, let me know in the comments. I'll help you out. This is Sapta. See you guys in the next one.